And scratch your mic.
It's working.
Okay. Yeah, we're going. I've got to adjust this something. Okay.
Are we in visiting and scoot over?
We're I've
We're
got a
closer
table
to
over
get-
here. I can't get any more.
Beans.
Yeah, because I've had to readjust so I can like sit here for longer periods of time.
Yes.
Anyways, welcome to Composer Talk. Week of September 12th, or just the day of September 12th. It's still
Yes.
Wednesday though. Even though I don't. Will you try and pull that curtain slightly forward?
Yeah, we're a little.
Don't pull down. Oh my God! Huge wasp up there.
Wait, what? Oh, that is a wasp.
That is a huge mother wasp. Be right back, folks.
Sorry about
Okay.
that, guys. We found a wasp up there, and Zach has allergies running in his family. So
Yeah.
we didn't want to take the risk that he get stung, and we could be making a trip to the hospital.
Yeah. In fact, I hate to do this, but actually, will you open the curtains a little more?
Huh?
Like here, we're
Like-
just gonna open them.
Like so?
Yeah, this way I can
So we can okay. So we're gonna be a little.
We're gonna be a little washed out, but honestly, in the interest of my personal health, I would rather Jacob look halfway washed out.
And to be quite honest, it kind of looks kind of cool this way. It's a nice color effect.
Not really. This is just desperation. Okay, anyways, so now that we spent 9 minutes killing a wasp, we'll rush through some of these things. Right. So you want to take this first one?
We have a lot of stuff to talk about this week. First of all, the Emmy Award winners were recently announced.
Emmy, not M.A.
I said Emmy.
It's not like I said M.A.
I said Emmy.
Whatever.
Anyway, and as usual, we have some composition awards for TV music involved. So the winner for the outstanding music composition for a series is Ramin Djawadi. I'm not sure if I pronounced that correct. He is the composer for Game of Thrones and won the award for the piece The Dragon and the Wolf. And the outstanding music composition for a limited series, movie, or special award goes to Cyril Aufort for March of the Penguins 2, The Next Step. And
I'm not happy with either of those.
I have not ever watched Game of Thrones and didn't actually know that there was a sequel to March of the Penguins.
I neither. Didn't need a sequel. And for Game of Thrones, I hate anything that tries to bring more popularity to it because it's already popular for no apparent reason.
I mean, I'm not going to judge a show without having seen it, but maybe I'll
well,
check
in
out
general, you know how most book adaptations go, right?
Yeah, I mean, like I know generally
they're like 80%. No,
yeah.
like
I
book
know,
adaptations are 80%.
I know it's not a faithful adaptation of the book. It doesn't make it a bad show.
Yeah,
but I haven't bothered to watch it.
The thing that's really dumb about it is that the popular stuff is the stuff that was completely added from the books, and stuff that isn't even story. It's things like adult scenes.
Well, yes, now there's a lot of adult material in the books too. I mean,
not nearly as much.
But like I said, I'm not going to judge a show without having seen it because I've never seen an episode. But perhaps I will go listen to this piece. But anyway,
honestly, it may have just won because of the series and not the music, unfortunately.
Well, I don't. Neither of us know that because have you listened to the piece?
No, I have not. But I'm just saying that a lot of times when this stuff happens, it's because the show has so much pull that just like pulls other things towards it.
How do you explain March of the Penguins 2, The Next Step?
You gotta have that obligatory documentary entry.
But anyway, yeah, like to go check these out, and you can see the list of all nominees for these awards, as well as the more popular music-oriented awards that we don't really get into here on the Emmys website, www.emmys.com.
Yeah. And then today is a very important day for not just, well, actually for the whole world, but particularly the European Union, because they are voting for the copyright votes, or they're voting on the copyright issue today. Basically, for those that have been keeping track of it, Europe has been moving towards kind of doing a copyright vote, similar to what the United States did a few years back. And basically, it's just to seek to update copyright law to enable content creators and to also basically help the end users not be tormented by copyright claims.
I hope it doesn't pass.
Why?
Because it's going to implement content ID laws that are going to cripple, well, for one, any music streaming. Because it's just going to make the problems that you have when you try to stream, you know, a performance of music and then it gets flagged for copyright, even though it's made.
Yeah.
It's going to make it worse. And number two, it's going to cripple legitimate use, like memes, of copyrighted material for derivative works purposes online.
Yes, but there is a huge benefit. It actually slaps huge penalties on anyone that steals your music.
I am not selfish enough to be.
I am. I'm like an old miser. I'm a very generous man, but at the same time, I like my money and my stuff and my creative output, and I don't want someone stealing my music. I don't want someone stealing my Minecraft videos. I don't want someone stealing any of my poster ideas I've designed.
Stealing my stuff either, but I don't want to trample on other people's freedoms and make the world a safer place for me. I figure
personally,
I'm
for me, also because keep in mind I'm a lot more heavily invested in the YouTube platform. For me, there's more benefits than detriments.
Well,
there's significantly more benefits.
I would keep arguing about this, but we talked about this for like a half an hour last week.
We did, but so in general, that is very important. So I mean,
it's something to be aware of.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what side of the issue you're on.
With one of us.
Yeah, either way, it's happening today. And there's based on initial polling, it's going to be split fairly down the middle, which means that they're gonna have to revote, which will be interesting. But
I would say go vote, but I guess if you're, I'm not sure if this is a referendum or is this a.
I'm just a mess today. No, this is the vote. Like, this is the vote.
No, I mean, is it a public referendum or?
Oh yeah, yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure. I don't really know how EU politics works.
Yeah, so, this is like everyone's voting. But yeah, based on initial polling, it's probably going to come down to a revote.
If you live in the EU, go vote. Yeah.
And if you don't, let us know where you'll stand on the issue. Because honestly, it's pretty important either way. And honestly, both sides are right for stupid reasons. That's the best summary, wouldn't you say?
I mean, I would say, well, I wouldn't say both sides are right. I mean, not everybody can be right, but we can all have valid points and disagree.
I'll say it this way: neither side is wrong. All right, moving on.
Yeah.
Speaking of streaming.
Yeah, speaking of internet.
There's a reason why I stuck it there.
Yeah. A new streaming app specifically for classical music has just launched. It's called Prime Phonic, and this app claims to contain almost all works and recordings ever made in history. There's over 1 million tracks on the Prime Phonic app, and you can download it at the Prime Phonic website. I have to say, I'm a little skeptical about the claim to contain almost all works and recordings ever made in history.
I can think of so many that probably doesn't. Also, it's only on Apple.
Oh, really? I didn't realize that.
Down on the App Store. There's no Play link.
Well,
and there's no desktop application either.
Oh.
So, honestly, okay, so there's a couple problems here. Yeah. One, they're trying to reach a very niche audience. Because who really wants access to a classical-only streaming application? And number two, Apple only. You just split what little market you have in two. And I mean, maybe 3/4, because the arts community, we tend to be more Apple-heavy.
And also, Apple still has, I mean, I wouldn't say they dominate the phone market, but...
They have about half.
Yeah, but for your phones, for your streaming on your phone, a lot of more people are going to have an iPhone than are going to have a MacBook.
Just for reference,
not quite half.
Not quite half anymore.
It's like 40%.
Yeah, they've got like 40%, and then most of the rest are under the Android flag.
Right.
Because I know about half of Samsung stuff is half of it is still on Samsung's weird OS. But yeah, and I mean, I suppose there's a possibility that it could be developed for Android as well, or web app. But when I looked at this, I'm like, okay. Sure, if you want to download this is great. But they're claiming to contain... The claim is we have almost everything. And the over 1 million was a statistic I found at the LA Times. It was not on their website. It was the LA Times Music Journal. But taking that over 1 million as true, after I saw this, I went on Naxos really quick. Naxos Music Library, which is more expensive than this, but if you go to a large university, you probably have any university, because Drury had it.
I mean, even Drury had it, yeah. Naxos has over 2 million tracks. So, and Naxos definitely does not have everything. Like, they have a lot, but not everything, especially with regard to contemporary music. So, I'm very skeptical. Like,
I was just double checking us.
Yeah.
Keep going.
I'm very skeptical about this app's claims. Like, sure, I mean, I hope their business succeeds because I want people to listen to classical music, especially contemporary music. But, yeah, I'm not convinced.
But yeah, well, and that's another thing I'm kind of doubting. It's like, because, you know, Naxos is the one that's supposed to have everything. Yeah, they have some repeats, but there are a few things that they just flat don't have. Like, they don't have all the Davidovsky synchronisms, and I might be biased, but I think those are very important.
Yeah.
And actually, most electronic musicians would say they're incredibly important. So, I don't know. Honestly, I'm willing to bet if I download that app on an Apple device, I still got one lying around, and I go to the search bar and I type in David Oxley Synchronism's number. Let's just say a more obscure one like 3. No, 2. No, 2 is pretty copy. 3. We'll say 3. I'm willing to bet I get nothing. Let alone for something like 9. Or is it 10, the guitar one?
10's the guitar one.
Yeah, 10's the guitar one, yeah.
You can find a recording on YouTube.
On YouTube, but no, I'm saying, like, what are the odds these guys actually have?
I don't want to, like, everybody to think, oh, this is a terrible app. If you have an Apple device and you want to stream stuff from your phone, you know, in your car or whatever, I can see how this would be used. Because I think they're probably not really trying to compete with Noxos. They're trying to compete with something like Spotify, which is just terrible for classical music. Because their data and artist databases aren't built to handle informations about a classical album where you have composer, conductor, ensemble.
Okay, this is actually something I like. It's more expensive than most streaming services. I like that.
$7.99 a month. That's the same price as, for reference, BritBox, which is like the BBC ITV streaming service.
Of course you would know about that.
I use it for classic Doctor Who.
Of course you do.
It's a little cheaper than Netflix. Netflix.
Not if your grandfather didn't like me. I've had Netflix for way too long.
Right now it's like $10.
Yep.
But actually it's not, because I'm paying for 2 screens. So for just one screen it's like 8 or 9. So this is like,
I've got unlimited screens for $7.99 because I've been grandfathered in because I'm one of the originals. This is it's one of the benefits of early adoption. People are like, "Oh, early adoption, you get screwed so much." It's like, no, man, early adoption, I get everything cheap.
Early adoption, if you're lucky and you invest in the right
No, it's
thing.
not lucky. I do research.
Or smart.
That's why, yeah.
I mean,
Well, like Dorico, I was an early adopter. Some people were doubters, like, "Oh, no one will ever be able to poke at the Sibelius or the Finale Bears," and I'm like, just you watch. I've done my research. These guys know what they're doing.
No one would have been able to poke at the Sibelius Bear if they had kept their program.
More on that later.
But yeah, I mean, it's relatively. I mean, for music streaming, it's a little expensive, but for like, as in comparison to other like DVD.
Actually, no, I know it's that same price. Hulu, yeah. Hulu is that exact same price.
Or Netflix. So, yeah, I mean, if you're interested in this, it might be something to
I
check
would
out.
be interested in checking it out for at least a month, but it's Apple only, which is really restrictive, and I'm not gonna install a Hackintosh because that's illegal.
But if you don't, stream much at inconvenience from your device, if you, like me, you mostly listen to CDs or listen while you're sitting at a computer, then
less useful.
It's not going to be as.
Unless you had a Macintosh, but if you get a Macintosh, I'll slap you. All right. So, Dorico 2.1 is out. It's actually been out, but it's like finalized. They've got the final build of 2.1 out, which means now they're working on 2.2. And basically, in all, 2.1 now, as a relatively it's the finished 2.1 now that they're working on 2.2. 2.1 has brought us now swing playback.
Oh, that's nice.
Finished up the slash region notation, which is really nice.
Like as in slash
bars.
Right.
Well, and that, but also slash bars. Yeah, all that stuff. All slash notation is now in. And then graphical note head editor. That is something that I've not played with personally, but I'm really excited to play with because that gives me a lot of creative ideas for the improv group, especially that Wingdings page. Yeah. I'm pretty sure we're reading a score right now that is written in Wingdings for a page. Anyways, so yeah, and then probably the best one, they had microtonal notation, but now they have microtonal playback.
Yeah, Sibelius doesn't have that. Well, it has quarter tone playback with a plugin.
Yeah. I'm just saying. Team Red. All right, and then more information on this on the Dorico blog. It's been updated. The articles, they've updated the initial blog post of what 2.1 brings to also show what it has gained basically in the last month, because Dorico, as usual, they don't like to just hold off the release forever. They're like, okay, we're going to give you some of the features. We're going to give you the rest of the features whenever the rest is ready type thing. And I like that because it keeps it fresh. It makes sure that they start satisfying more parties, and it doesn't give you giant content droughts. So it's always nice. It's not really the right terminology. That's technically something from online gaming, but still, well, it's basically whenever you go like a year with no content.
I understand what it means. I think it's a.
It is. It's very neat. Except whenever it actually happens, then you cry.
Yes.
14 months of Siege of Orgrimmar. I still have PTSD. Anyways, so yeah, so that's a thing. Yeah, good job, Steinberg.
Oh, sorry, you were.
No, I was saying moving on.
Coming up next, the Philadelphia Orchestra recently announced several new commissions for works by women composers. To give a little background on this, we didn't talk about the backlash Philadelphia Orchestra when it happened, because it kind of happened during our little summer break thing we did.
For 2 weeks, yeah.
Yeah, 2 or 3 weeks. But basically, the Philadelphia Orchestra several weeks ago released their 2018-19 season, and it had no works by women composers on any of the programs. People weren't happy about this. So Philadelphia Orchestra responded to this initially by holding a reading session with giving feedback to 6 women composers, and also adding 2 short pieces by contemporary women onto a couple other programs for this. This past week, the Philadelphia Orchestra came out with a big announcement that the 6 composers who had their works read will also be receiving commissions from the orchestra within the next. Those composers are Melody Etavos, Robin Holcomb, Hui Jen, Hilary Purrington, Shi Wang, and Nina C. Young. And will also commission Valerie Coleman and Gabrielle Elena Frank, who will also be the composer in residence in 2020 and 2021. The orchestra will also be starting a new mentoring program for women composers, and there are supposedly more commissions announced that we don't know about yet.
Okay. This requires a little bit of deconstruction. So, is there initially anything wrong with the fact that there were no women composers?
Yes.
What if you look at the statistic that, I mean, they only make up 20%?
I mean, there is no actual statistic out there.
Well, based on the 2 sets of statistics we have, which are the ASCAP numbers / BMI numbers, and then the SCI numbers. And given that that covers a lot of composers overall as a body, that's a pretty good representation. Unless they've done something to ostracize women, which to my knowledge, we haven't done.
ASCAP, or I mean, to my knowledge, ASCAP is.
Yeah, like there's been no real issues. In fact, there's been pushes within each of them to push for women composers. But honestly, like, I see it as odd that there were no women composers in a whole season featuring contemporary music, but not impossible.
I see it.
I don't though. I mean,
it's not as if the Philadelphia Orchestra wasn't doing any contemporary music. I mean, they weren't doing as much as they should. But there were several. Over the course of an entire season, they did have several pieces like contemporary.
On average, 1 per show. So you figure for Philadelphia, but you figure the Philadelphia Orchestra, they do like what, 20 separate showings a year,
something like that.
And that's like separate programs. They do like multiple nights of each show. And so with that means I'd say probably 15 of them had a new piece. So with that, at most they should have had 2 to 3 women. Just riding on the current statistic that we have. And I'm not saying, like, oh, you hard cap. I'm just saying, like, if you look at statistics, then, I mean, okay, 2 or 3 is what you'd expect. Not what you need to have, but it's what you'd expect. The fact that you're a few under, entirely weird.
The fact that it's 0 is...
I don't find that weird. I mean, sometimes just objectively, the pieces submitted by the women were weaker. Sometimes that happens.
But, I mean, we're not talking about submissions to a call for scores. We're talking about a music director programming concerts, picking pieces, and somehow.
But if he's picking on exclusively musical quality, maybe he just had one across one.
That's a load of crap. A lot of the best composers in the world right now are women.
No, and I'm not disagreeing. But honestly, like, if you have an artistic intent, like this semester, for instance, I have my artistic intent with the New Century Improv Group. there are a lot of pieces that were excellent. In fact, there are a couple that were probably better than what we chose, but they did not fit my artistic vision, so I got rid of them. Am I a bad person for that?
No.
Okay,
but
what if this is the same situation? You don't know that.
I have my doubt. Look, Zach. The orchestra repertoire has been dominated by dead white males for a very long time
and
now.
That's a problem.
And I don't think it's unreasonable to be a little bit cynical about the programming practices of an orchestra that manages to program an entire year-long season without a single woman composer. And I mean, look, if
STCO did it all the time.
Yeah.
Springfield Symphony did it all the time.
Well, I didn't like that either. I mean.
No, I can tell you from the inside because I knew Ron Spiegelman, and he did try to find women composers.
Well,
and no jokes about what would have happened there. But as an artist, he was seeking women composers. Just the problem is, it's like you've got a smaller. Think of it as this: like whenever you're recruiting as a recruiter for like football team at a university, you don't go to a smaller school as often unless you know that there's someone there. You go to the large schools football matches because they have a larger talent pool, which means that there's a greater chance that you're going to find someone that can fill your new linebacker slot that you need to fill in the next couple months. And it's kind of that same position with that I find a lot of artistic directors in. Now, I'm not saying 100%, oh yeah, it's because all the women's stuff sucked. I'm not saying that. A couple of my favorite composers are women. But actually, I think I have more favorite women composers than male composers today. But anyways, in general, I mean, it is entirely feasible that because like, for instance, my artistic vision, there are some pieces that you would have loved for the improv group this semester.
Yeah.
There are some pieces that you have loved, but they did not fit my agenda for what the ensemble was going to do. And if this is that same situation, I don't see that as a good thing. I mean, now, if this were to happen, let's say 2 seasons in a row, like 2 full seasons in a row of, hey, we're going to focus on new music, but not including women composers for 2 of them, Zach, at that point, there's a problem.
This does happen all the time. This isn't just, I mean, the Philadelphia Orchestra kind of got all the backlash this year, but overall, I think the last statistics that came out were like 2% of works programmed by orchestras were
I saw
women,
4.
Something like that. And something
but
like,
with contemporary, it's significantly higher.
Yeah, something like 15.
No, it's about 20.
Like,
I was reading about 20 where I was looking. I mean, again, it depends where you look. Where you look, you're going to see different numbers.
But I'm happy the Philadelphia Orchestra is doing this. When the news came out, before they made these changes, I was very cynical. I think I have a reason to be so. Because this is not just an isolated incident. This is the fabric of contemporary orchestral programming. And I think both you and I would agree that ultimately the bigger problem is a dearth of new music, and that we would have more works by women and more music composed.
Well, yeah,
but I don't think that is the only problem. I think, and we've seen.
Honestly, it's the biggest problem with it though, because think about it this way: on average, most orchestras might have 1 new piece per show.
Mm-hmm.
And looking at, let's just use that 20% rule, because 3 organizations have published numbers saying 20% of our composers are women, so that's a pretty good statistic to write off of. That means that there is an 8 in 10 chance of that 1 slot per concert being a male's piece. So, I mean, honestly, I think, yes, what Philadelphia Orchestra is doing right now is, I think that's a good step forward, and I think it is probably a show of faith of, hey, that's not what we intended, here's what we're doing type thing. And so that's why I have faith that that's not what they were intending, because I don't think they would bend over backwards like this if it was a bit more malicious. That's just my personal thing.
I don't have it.
Anyways, but
so the Philadelphia Orchestra has been getting backlash from like everyone over the past year. They're trying to save their own rear end.
Either way, I'm trying to have faith in them. Anyways, but the way I see it is the bigger issue is, like you mentioned, getting new music in general into the concert halls. And once that happens, like once you have it to where you have 4 pieces of new music and 1 old piece of music on a concert, at that point, about half of concerts will probably have a woman composer on it. And that would more than match the statistic. And it would probably weigh a little heavier in favor of the women because some of the leading composers right now are women. In fact, I'm willing to say it's about a 50-50 split in the leading composers that I'm thinking of right now in my head between women and men.
Yes,
especially once you count out the old film composers.
Which I think kind of cuts against your argument, because there are significantly more male composers than women composers active in at least in the United States today.
Hilariously more.
But when it comes to the top tier of composers, who, let's face it, the Philadelphia Orchestra is generally picking from. They're not doing works by nobodies most of the time.
No, they're doing things like, John Adams. They're doing things by Corigliano, probably, I would imagine.
I think I saw a Corigliano piece. I don't even
know. I mean,
but
people that have more than earned their place in the modern repertoire.
But when you get to that point, the pool of composers that Philadelphia Orchestra is picking from, it starts to make less sense that they don't have any women on there.
But honestly, still not no sense, because keep in mind, you don't just, when you're structuring a program, you don't just say, what is the best piece of music? No, you find the one that fits your artistic vision. And sometimes there's a legitimate reason why you want to have Beethoven 3 instead of Beethoven 2 on a concert.
Huh?
Sometimes there's a legitimate reason why you want to have Tchaik 2 versus Tchaik 1. Sometimes there's a legitimate reason why you want the second prelude from Liszt instead of the first. So, I mean, there's a bunch of stuff that goes into programming concerts and a season in general that, honestly, I'm willing to give them benefit of the doubt only because I've been there. I've had to make those decisions, and I've had to sit there and look at a piece that is gold in my hands and just know that I don't have a place for it on my program. So, I mean, I feel their pain. I mean, it is possible that it's more a bad thing, but my personal take on it is I'm not willing to make a judgment call because there's no strong evidence that the artistic director is biased in that way. If there comes some strong evidence, I will probably change my mind, because once someone shows tendencies, they follow patterns. But at least in my eyes, he hasn't shown these tendencies, because honestly, someone's artistic programming does not define who they are as a character, in my opinion. So that's just my personal opinion. Yeah. Do you have anything else to mention about this before we close out?
You're gonna agree to disagree, I guess.
Yeah, just.
But regardless, this is good. Well,
no, it is good what they're doing. Yeah, bravo.
Representation for women composers and simply for contemporary composers. I'm excited to hear these new pieces that all these composers are gonna.
Well, and like on that list, I'm Chen Wei. I'm familiar with. I've heard the Purrington name, and then Nina Young.
Nina Young's.
I've seen that name.
She teaches, I believe, at UT Austin, University of Texas.
Oh, and, I think she submitted something to Calls for Scores.
And
Passports for him.
And she's been very kind of increasing in popularity lately. I've heard some of her music is quite good.
Yeah.
So
a good rising younger talent, not young but younger talent. Yeah, works with Pinkston and all of them. Yeah, it's the same Nina Young I'm thinking of. I enjoy her, but I don't know if it's the same one I'm thinking of. It's possible I'm thinking of a different. Anyways, moving on. Is Finale actually doing something?
Ooh.
So they've been releasing these little sneak peeks on their website. Make Music has for Finale. All right, they don't even use the Make Music name anymore. It's all just Finale now.
Yeah.
I think they're just Finale now. Anyway, so Finale has been releasing these little sneak peeks, and they're basically showing little tools that, I mean, I'll showcase right now what's happening. There's a little
graphic on the
weird
website.
Graphic. Why aren't you moving over? There we go. Okay. All right. So you can see here that they're showcasing, okay, yeah, you've got some instant articulation markings and stuff like that. That's interesting. I wouldn't call that doing something new. More libraries, so basically just the expressions and
Right.
Notehead's library. That's basically what they're referencing. Uh, so basically, I just want to compare. This is Finale's version of, hey, we're giving a sneak peek. No, no, no. I'm not going to go to the Dorico website, but I'm actually just going to compare this to any other thing. Like, you think the Finale blog would give you more, but is any of this really new stuff?
I mean, I'm not as familiar with Finale as I am with my.
You're becoming familiar,
but I mean, I know how to use it.
None of this is really new.
It's like automatic avoid collisions. This is stuff that Sibelius has had for a long time,
and Dorico shipped with,
and like, it's good that they're doing stuff like this to make it easier to like engrave in Finale, because it's kind of a pain to engrave in. But that, yeah, I mean, they're catching up.
Not really though, because they're
starting to catch up.
They've got I don't know. It's just I see this, and honestly, they didn't used to do this stuff. Steinberg pushed them to do it.
Yeah,
because Steinberg they have a video out every week on either a new feature, a feature that's popularly requested that they're working on, a workaround for something, or sometimes a sneak peek at something coming soon.
Mm-hmm.
Literally weekly. They have not missed a week. And they have a monthly live stream, too, that they sit there and they talk about things that are coming, and they compile all that stuff into a giant live stream. I think they're literally just trying to make it look good, because honestly, there's nothing there. That's the equivalent of me turning in a final paper saying Beethoven was a composer. Do you feel like this is about right?
I mean,
okay, fine. He's a composer that lived in Vienna.
I feel that this is. These are like fixes that needed to happen a really long time ago. That they're minor fixes that needed to happen a long time ago that they're finally getting to, and
yeah, but
I don't use Finale because why wait?
This is why I'm Team Red.
Do these things, but you can get Dorico or Sibelius that have been able to do these things for like a really long time.
I don't know. It's so yeah. Basically, the reason why I did the kind of fake news title of Finale is actually doing something? Question mark. Because honestly, I don't think they are. I think they're trying to make it look like they are, but honestly, all they're doing are minor tweaks. And granted, I don't know how the back end looks, but as a fairly experienced programmer, I really don't think they're doing much. That's just my personal take. Again, I don't know until they actually release version 26 and I get my hands on it and take a look at it. But until that point, I'm willing to say that they're not doing too much. They're basically just trying to give the illusion that, yeah, we're competitive. Go team. All right. So the next thing, David McBride died?
Yes, David McBride, some sobering news and in a week of mostly good. David McBride is...
I like how you snuck it in the middle there.
Was a professor of composition and theory at the Hart School of Music in Connecticut at Hartford University, and he died this past week. So, R.I.P. Dr. McBride. I know a couple people at the Hart School, which is where I initially found out about this from. Train type keep.
Actually, there was another. Oh, I don't remember who it was, but one of the professors at Tulsa died.
Oh.
Yeah, a couple of the Tulsa sites have posted about it.
I didn't hear about that.
Yeah, a couple of the Tulsa sites. Yeah, I saw a couple people talking about it. Yeah, that's a little sobering, but yeah, I don't think it was like any of their actual composers. I think it was one of the theorists, but still, it's. Right. It kind of affects our world.
Yes.
And I believe it's one of the Tulsa people because I've seen 3 Tulsa sites post about it, so I'm assuming either that or they all have a different connection. But yeah, so it's a weird week for deaths and such. So let's talk about something much happier. So this next one makes me really happy because basically, long story short, I have my high school orchestra teacher who had a daughter who had, she very much was a music geek like the rest of us, but she kind of defied all odds. And at Glendale High School, a school of about 2,000 kids, one of the orchestra kids ended up getting homecoming queen. And I made a joke at that point, and I actually was like, Miss America next, just like, because who would have known? Because honestly, composers and violinists, you don't get homecoming queen or homecoming king. You don't. You're lucky if you go. Anyways, so fast forward like 4 years, and now not her, but another woman by the name of Nina Franklin has been named Miss America. And that is actually really cool.
That's cool. Represent!
Like, composer Nina Franklin is Miss America. So, she got her master's degree in composition from UNC School of the Arts. Yep. Also an opera singer. That part I did not know. Thank you for putting that in there.
Well, most of the articles about it have focused on she's an opera singer because nobody cares about us composer.
Oh, of course.
I think it's more impressive.
Yeah, we'll spend tenure... she will spend her tenure as Miss America advocating for the arts. This is the part that I was most interested in. Great. Like, okay, because most of the time, most of them pick something generic. Like, okay, I'm going to focus on, young kids' education. Okay, I'm going to focus on women's rights. Okay.
Generic.
I'm going to focus on, let's see, what's another one you see a lot? Homeless children. That's another big one.
To help people.
Well, no, like the Miss America things, like they tend to fall into like one of those 3 little slots I just mentioned.
We haven't really. I mean, I don't follow Miss America until now, but you don't see a lot of people. I feel I would have heard about Miss America advocating for the arts because I'm an arts person, and we haven't heard about a Miss America advocating.
Well, the closest thing to this, as far as like going outside the box for Miss America, was actually a few years ago. There was the one that won that she wanted to start a couple programs to help women or young girls wanting to go into STEM fields. That was a huge deal, and I would view this as even bigger because it's arts.
But yeah, congratulations, Nia Franklin. She also said she wants to her doctorate at Juilliard, so that's cool.
Well, and honestly, with this, she'd have a much easier route to get in because this would just look good for Juilliard.
Yeah.
Because Juilliard, for those that don't know, they have a long history of only letting their own through their upper ranks. So basically, you don't just go somewhere else and get your doctorate at Juilliard. You just don't, unless none of their current master students have any interest. And it's not because everyone else is bad. It's just because they would rather really cultivate their Juilliard children. So honestly, she might be able to kind of burst that bubble because this would look really good. And does it mention if she's going for composition or opera?
I mean, I would
imagine opera.
I don't think. I mean, if I got 2 degrees in composition, I would stick with it through the doctorate. I am about to get 2 composition in a year, but I don't think it specifies it. I'm not sure if the Juilliard thing was in this Classic FM article that right now, or was it a different article.
Okay, I think it is. Yeah, it doesn't say where she's going, but her talent portion does mention that that's where she sang Quando m'en vo from Puccini's La Bohème. And honestly, with that, I'm willing to bet that she might be trying to go for opera for the doctorate.
I don't know.
Well, it would make sense, like, progression-wise. I mean, it's a little weird getting 2 degrees in composition then going to opera, but I've seen weirder things.
Or get a composition degree and specialize in composing opera.
That's another thing. Anyways, so...
yeah, congratulations. She's also a fellow Janelle Monáe fan. Ooh.
Well, I guess there's 2 of you. Anyways. Yeah, so that's really good. I'm really happy about this. This just makes me ecstatic. I might not look as ecstatic because I'm still worried about wasps, but I am actually very ecstatic on the inside. But yeah, and I just love that like fist pumping thing she's doing right there. That makes me so happy. Anyway, so yeah, musicians were taking over. 4 years ago, we won Homecoming Queen. Now we won this.
I want a composer for president.
We're missing a few steps. We need a senator.
John Adams for president.
No, oh my gosh, no. Nothing would get done. Like, seriously, have you watched his workflow? Like, he basically is just kind of like, oh yeah, the composition gets done when it gets done. It's like, oh god.
It works.
It won't work for that.
Anyway, moving. We have 10 minutes left to talk about a lot of new recordings that came out this week.
We'll try to blast through these as quickly as possible.
The Rebecca Dale, British composer Rebecca Dale, has released an album called Requiem for My Mother that includes the sort of title track, Materna Requiem, in Latin and English on the title. I guess that's for accessibility reasons. Featuring the Cantos Chamber Choir and the Royal Liverpool Philharmonic, and another piece for an orchestra, When Music Sounds, featuring the Cantos Ensemble and Studio Orchestra. This is available from Decca Records. She has a website for the piece, because that's something that now, and you can access it on Naxos Music Library if you have it. Probably YouTube too, but I didn't look because
Hooray for Naxos.
If you have Naxos. Another recent album is Anya Akanayaka, who released a new album entitled 12 Piano Prisons. Akanayaka is a composer and pianist from Sri Lanka who's based in the Kingdom again, and this is a cycle of 12 pieces, well-tempered clavier style, because they're all in different key, or we'd say in each one of the 12 possible tonal centers in an. But all the pieces are based on Sri Lankan melodies with influences from traditional romantic piano music, popular music, film music. It's kind of a hodgepodge of a lot of things. This is available from Naxos and predictably is available in the library. Have it. After a kind of month-long drought, New Focus Recordings is back in action. They're typically prolific releases with 3 new albums released. Saxavoce by saxophone duo.
That'd be Sacavoce, I bet.
Yeah, that would be the Latin pronunciation.
Yeah.
Sacavoce. By saxophone duo Oni Ono, which I can't pronounce, but is spelled OGNISUO. This is that's the name of the duo, and they are performing works by Soper, Zach Sheet, Christopher Dietz, Chris Fish-Blockhead, David Remnick, Felipe Lara, and Ed Rogers. Again, from New Focus Recordings is an album by composer Ken Thompson. It's entitled Sextet and features a composition of the name for tenor saxophone, alto saxophone, trumpet, trombone, bass, resting instrument.
Jazz.
It is jazz.
Yeah. In fact, I actually think I recognize him as a jazz. Keep going.
Is this a jazz album? It might be. It's from New Focus. And he also has an arrangement on the album that he did for this ensemble of Ligides Pasakalia Unkresi. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. UNG. And final album from New Focus is a new record from Dmitry Timosko called Fools and Angels that features 4 voice chamber on. So, lots of stuff. And then, I have another one from New Amsterdam Records. Improvisational album from guitarist Harry Halverson and multi-instrumentalist Robbie Lee. This album is called A Triangular and features both guitar and variations thereupon. There's a banjo, I think I saw a harp guitar in a video, and Robbie Lee's a multi-instrumentalist, and a couple of the instruments I saw featured were Baroque flute and the world's smallest saxophone.
Tiny.
It's like the world's smallest violin.
Yeah.
So, lots of new music this week, so check it out. I haven't had a chance to listen to all of these, but I've listened to a couple.
So, really quick, why don't you spend about 60 seconds, like, how do you find your like for those of us that want to explore and find new music.
Okay.
Like how do you go about
I'm
finding something?
So I'm always evolving the way I look at things. I like, and I want to emphasize that just because the stuff I talk about here is not everything that's out there.
That's why I wanted you to mention it. Yeah.
And typically I have record companies that specialize in new music that I check out. New Focus is one that's probably the most prolific. New Amsterdam Recordings, Innova, Navona, Ravello, both Navona and Ravello are both imprints of Pharma, and I think we'll be talking about a couple of their albums next week because we have some colleagues and professors who are releasing albums on those labels. So number one, finding new music record label. Number two, if you have Naxos, albums don't often go out on Naxos immediately after the release. I mean Naxos, the music library, but sometimes they go on pretty soon after, and you see them pop up. There's a running list of new recordings. And that's not just from the Naxos label, it's also stuff from like Decca Records that Naxos has access to. Other good ways to find recordings are just follow composers you like on Facebook and Twitter, because they post about recordings and premieres and like this. Yeah. And then there's also new music blog site. 5 Against 4, New Music Box, I Care If You Listen, places that regularly post about new music, find write-ups about albums and that kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I just wanted to ask that because a lot of people don't really know how best to go about it, and it's not really hard. It's just, I mean, it's kind of like the mental discipline of taking that 10 to 15 minutes once a week to. Just discover what's out there. I spend that 10 to 15 minutes of research more actually figuring out about kind of like the mechanics in the world of composition, which is why, I mean, we do kind of have a split of our duties. I kind of focus more on like, the mechanics, the tech stuff, the kind of the background stuff, and kind of the, I guess, the inner workings of composers, things like techniques, stuff like that. And then Jacob, he very much enjoys looking for the new albums and all that stuff. And it's why we kind of have that split. And it's why sometimes when there's no news on one end, it's not because one of us is lazy, most of the time. It's more often than not just because, there was not really much of note in this area.
We've had several weeks lately where Zach's been like, there's no. And when I've been like, there's no news, period, because there wasn't. Yeah,
and one week, one of the weeks why we canceled during the summer was because literally the only thing was, they released one of the crawls for Finale V26.
Yeah, I think there was one week where I found one album. I like this is not worth having an entire show to talk about one album.
Yeah, but then like other times there'll be like no albums, but like I'll have found something interesting with like the copyright stuff, or like actually I think the week whenever ASCAP and BMI reached the agreement with YouTube, that was one of those weeks where there was not really much in the new music world, but there was a lot on the tech side, because it was literally just like this is huge.
I'm glad you asked that question, because we talk about these new albums every week, but I had no idea where to go look for new music when we started doing this. It's something I started because I'm like, nobody does this. Nobody catalogs new albums, talks about them. So I guess that's our job. And I'm still very much refining the way I do things.
Well, and I'm refining the way I do it too, because and honestly, like for the tech stuff, it's kind of the same things. You gotta look in the same places, not Noxus obviously, but no, it's the same kind of things. Follow the products you like and all that stuff, and then pay attention to social media. That, and occasionally just look at their forums, because sometimes that's whenever it's not this case really with recordings. This is more for like techniques or technology, or kind of like positions or movements, things like that. Looking at forums for related areas. So like for instance, for the copyright vote, I got a bit more insight into that because I sat there and I looked at a lot of Reddit threads dedicated to this. We've
found several news items just on the Orchestration Online Facebook page.
Oh, that's a wonderful resource.
And somebody posts something there, and it's like, cool, like that. The survey the guy did on notation software, a few weeks ago. Sometimes there's just interesting topics on there we find that like we should talk about this. And yeah. But one thing I did want to bring up about finding new music before we run out of time here, actually kind of counterintuitively, New York Times. You wouldn't think it's a good source for new music.
Occasionally
and
it is.
It's limited, but if you go on the website,
same with the LA Times.
Yeah, LA Times also. But a lot of the new music that happening in New York. And if you go to the New York Times, they put up a write-up about what's new in classical music this week, every week, and usually there's at least one or two things about a new record or performance or premiere.
And that's actually another thing that I did want to mention. Another resource that I use a lot is actually like the electronic music folks, so like Seamus and ICMC, stuff like that. Like a lot of the Interior Network stuff, or the Canadian electroacoustic music composers. Those guys are great. I love those guys. They're hilarious. But yeah, lots of places to look. You just kind of gotta know where. And again, we're working on having some sort of back end where people can like look at this stuff in one compiled place. It's just been a little busy because getting the semester started is a little weird for those not involved in academia. But yeah. So anyway, so yeah,
we're both pretty busy. You're working on your dissertation, and I have
it's just a dissertation.
Yeah, I have all sorts of stuff to do.
I actually, funny story, I just wrote up a huge blog post about.
I saw that you posted that.
And it was actually about the weight of a dissertation and how I actually think the weight of the dissertation isn't a thing. I think it's actually something else entirely, which gives it. There's something that gives it the simulated weight of wow, it's like 3 times harder than a thesis.
It's also a psychological thing. I mean, I think even
that's kind of why I came to the conclusion.
Right, because you've been spending, I mean, like 7 or 8 years doing this. I mean, you can write music.
This is my 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th,
well, I'm talking
13th
about it in the
year of composition.
At the collegiate level, but yeah, if you go back through high school. But like there's that psychological thing that's like oh it's a dissertation, oh no what am I gonna do?
It's actually not even that. Yeah, actually I might talk about that a little bit next week.
That would be because I think that could be helpful not just for people working on dissertations, but people working on any large project.
Yeah,
the psychology of having to take something like that on.
Yeah. Anyway, so. Yeah, this has been Composer Talk, September 12th, 2018. Sorry for spending 9 minutes trying to murder a wasp. Just, I didn't want to have to go to the hospital.
You gotta see the entertainment of me.
Yeah. And me, like, standing over there, like, I don't want to go to the hospital. I want to go to the hospital. I stay over there.
That was a resilient wasp, man. I didn't want to die. We will see you later. Send us your hate mail, and we'll talk to you next week. Adios.
Ciao. No, you can't.
I just hit no show.
Yeah. You know they can't see you once it hit.
I didn't know how long it took.
It's instant. Yeah. Yeah. Completely instant. Then hit the stop streaming button.
That one?
Yep.